Welcome to the February UK Cloud Infrastructure User Group Meetup. First of all, very, very big thank you for the .mailer for hosting us, Fernando and the team. Can we get some applause, please? All the beer and pizza and the venue is being provided by the .mailer, so really much appreciated. Okay, so today we have Ebru. She is going to talk about compliance as a code. Let me introduce Ebru very quickly. She's a very, very active community member. She's helping us well organizing meetups and conferences. In this meetup, we already had her last year talking for the 2 years ago. Time flies. So yeah, very, very active member. And all of you guys, I want to encourage to share your experience if you have any ideas, or if you will to talk about, you know, some problems, some issues, how did you overcome, or just to share your experience. You're very, very welcome to speak in this meetup or in a PowerShell. We can even organize lightning talks for a few minutes, like 5, 10 to 15 minutes, and it will be a good experience to share with all of our community members. And now, Ebru, welcome, and the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Just need to plug this. Just to avoid another incident, I'll put my laptop to charge. Let them drop in the middle of the way. Cool. I have Wi-Fi, I have charge, so I can start.
Ebru, 1 second. And I just want to thank you, one member who ran for technical issues to sort it out for the last minute. So thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, apparently the new MacBooks come with USB-C. There are 4 USB-C drives and nothing else. Like, I was out of nowhere, no HDMI, no entrance. So with the cable support, now I can present. Today I will be talking about compliance as code. Who am I? I'm kind of doing consultancy. I started as .NET developer and a trainer 16 years back, and it evolved eventually into the DevOps area. I worked 11 years kind of developing either the solutions for them, for many financial institutions, or creating the automation layer platform. So it's a bit mix and match, but I have never been kind of to the DevOps sec area. It's mostly coming from the development and the operations side of the things. So today I will be talking about in 2 parts. I don't know how much time we are allocating, but I'll try my best to give the most important parts in a shorter time. The first part is about the compliance, to see what compliance means and how Azure space kind of does help to be compliant. The second part is more into the governance and what the new features of Azure can help us to govern or be compliant on our environments. And the last part is a kind of presentation of a Azure DevOps kit called AZSK. Just to understand who you are and kind of what's your background, who have been working with Azure. Ooh, 90%, that's good. And how many people have been used with compliance, like policies? Good. So it will be kind of showing the other side of the things, how we can automate and make it more easy. So as I said, I'm not a DevSecOps expert, so this talk is not about kind of giving you the best practice. It will be about giving back best practices, but it's not kind of the golden rules of my expertise. It's not about saving money as well, because Azure does offer lots of things, which I will be referring, but almost none of them is going to save you money, but they will cost you more money. So What is compliance? As a Wikipedia, the standard definition is conforming to a rule, such as specification, a policy, or a standard or law. It could be any standard that you are applying. It could be, if you're a financial institution, you should be compliant via several systems. Or it could be internal, that you have no financial compliance regulators problems, that you want to be compliant to a standard, internal kind of company-wide standard you want to apply. So you can encourage all the teams, all the development teams and operation teams to a standard level that you can execute. Compliance is quite hard. There are challenges for it. For example, the data protection compliances, risk assessment, auditing operations. This is one of the reports that has been the last over, in 2018, there were over 200 updates from 750 regulatory bodies, and 32% of the companies are spending more than 4 hours to create or amend their reports. It's kind of reading policy, interpreting, defining controls, implementing, generating evidence, auditing or monitoring internally, and external audit. They are all processes kind of does involve and require some input from humans. So when we look at that, okay, but we are automating everything and we are kind of escalating our responsibility to Azure, to the cloud platform. So it means actually you are escalating your responsibility to a level, because it's still, with the on-prem, you had the responsibility to be physical security, host infrastructure, network controls, application level controls, client and protection and data classification. The top three, even if you are doing the SaaS solution with the identity and access management, client endpoint protection and data classification is still your accountability. That is part of this talk that I will be focusing on, kind of how to get those parts right, rather than focusing on anything else that we may have. So what does Azure support? Azure has audit reports. I don't know if you have kind of walked through them, but they have lots of data protection guidelines, how to get best practices. This is either your SQL Server data or it's your VM, kind of how to manage the data and how to protect it, how to be compliant. And there's Azure Security and Compliance Blueprints, not to confuse with the new blueprints they announced last year, Ignite, which I will be talking about. But this is kind of making sure that when someone talks about a regulation, I know what I'm talking about, or my environment can be bare minimum by the baseline is compatible. So these are the topics they have on their website: the government blueprint to the healthcare, finance, and retail. Who are from retail, finance, by the way? 2, 3. They are the kind of hardest part to get it right, because they have to comply like everything that you have to think about what your environment is, what your data is, who you are dealing with. Which is more interesting for me. That's why kind of this presentation makes more interesting. The more compliant means the more policies and rules we have to think about. So this is one example, that PCI DSS blueprint. I'll just, it has actually, for each one, it has specific options. What would be a data analytics kind of solution, what a data warehouse solution would be, what IaaS solution would look like, or a PaaS solution would look like. And it will create a customer responsibility matrix, reference architecture, a Visio diagram, that implementation matrix, an overview of the thread model as well. So I just want to look at this kind of one. Can I? Perfect. I do exit. Do I need to put that? Please come back. This is the website. Why it's so interesting is for each one, this is for specific to PCI DSS, for data analytics, data warehouse, infrastructure as a service, and platform as a service, have the artifacts. So I don't have, so if you look at the overview, it's literally documentation of how you would be able to implement a proper PCI DSS solution. And then this is the architecture. These are the minimum requirements. This is the data analytics solution. I'm interested in the past one. These are the components, the minimum components you may have, kind of, and what to think about for each one. So if this is my architecture, we will look in a bit detail because I'm really interested in to see what this means for me. Thank you very much, test of connection. I can see it here, but for some reason it. Okay, it's kind of better. I think for some reason it is F12 or another function. It doesn't understand. This is the Chrome. I want to just. When you are prepared, all the URLs are open on that page. Control F. Control F4. Okay, leave the page. This is the kind of architecture diagram, which was the Internet Explorer. So I'm left with Internet Explorer for some reason. It is full screen on my remote desktop, so I'm trying to find a way to close it. Alt F4, all the tricks. Anyone knows any tricks to close Chrome? Sorry? Exit full screen. This is better. It's not full screen anymore, but at least I have the control. Control is good. Okay. So this one's the trouble. Okay, I have downloaded everything. Why I took time, really, I could just skip it, but I want to show it. Every documentation they have here in terms of the implementation metrics. They went through all the PCI DSS implementation, and step by step, they put what kind of, how much coverage would it have. So if you read through the PCI DSS compliance rules, they put on their architecture diagram, is the reference architecture diagram covers it. They have the 60% of the coverage, whatever their reference architecture. This is like the ideal scenario. So if you want to comply with something, gathering all the requirements to one place and putting your reference architecture Visio diagram, has nothing to do with you think, but putting all the items, resources, and show that they are compliant or not. And you have a percentage of how much you are compliant. I think it's a big thing to be kind of ultimate state you want to be in, because then you are in charge of your environment and you know what to do. And also with that kind of, they have the Excel sheet, as I show you. They have the Word document, the Visio diagram. But there is one more that I want to show, which is the thread model. Has anyone used the thread model tool? Yeah, it is really cool. I have done this for one of my previous companies, a bank, another bank, and we had to do get an understanding of how our environment is secure. It's thread modeling API, thread modeling tool, sorry, does give you visibility. You think that it's just another Visio diagram that I'm done enough. I have done all my items, connections. This is what, in a sense, it does give you sanity, because now I have a better understanding of my environment. What's the browser clients? What are the boundaries? What the connections are there? What you do is you implement your architecture again, which is a bit I know, time-consuming task, and it's a duplication in a sense, but you have a better understanding of your environment. So why do I need another Visio, you may ask? This is the report, and I say create full report. When I do generate, this is the idea says. It does come up with a report, HTML report. It's really cool, because what it did, it went through all the boundaries, and it compared across its architecture. And it does tell me how many mitigations have been implemented. This is literally for each one. For example, changing execution flow in the NSJAP gateway, because of the elevation of the privilege, an attacker may pass data into the app gateway. So you need to do RBAC manage AAD, or user roles defined on your deployment documentation verify. Sorry?
Roll back a bit, okay?
Oh, sorry.
Explain a bit, slowly.
Does it? Thank you. I didn't realize. Yep. So this is step by step. It does tell all the.
So it's basically a risk assessment.
It is. Yeah. Have a better visibility of what your environment and what are the risks, and how you mitigate them. And actually, Microsoft has other tools as well. It's part of the big chunk, not part of this topic, this talk, but it has lots of other tools supporting this, making sure your environment is secure, and understand it in a better way. I really recommend it to just look at and create your own diagrams, just to generate the reports and understand what they are. You can put your own definitions. You can make it quite extendable if you want to.
So you create the diagram in the tool?
Yes, you just do it. It does generate the report because of those connections and what.
It needs to see the reference architecture within that diagram, and then it follows through.
Because it's Azure resources, it does know what Azure resources problems are, possible risks are. So it's really cool. That's why I want to do. Show it if you. Cool. So this is the compliance part. So what are the Azure basics? Because compliance comes with the basics of the data. If you have data, you can assess it, right? So to get the data, we have a couple of resources, which are the data sources from all over the place. It can be on-prem, it can be cloud, or any environment that you have. You can just have an agent, in a sense. Most of them are agent-based communication. And you can just aggregate them as metrics or logs, which gives you the whole bunch of vendors and third-party tools that you can display or analyze. So the quick bit for the data sources, the difference between metrics and logs, it's sometimes confusing, and people use them together at the same time, which is not right, because metrics happens every regular period of time. It could be for Azure minimum every minute. It most of the time shows performance. It's like your running pace. that every minute you have to kind of log it. Even if it's the same one as the previous one, it does log. So those are the metrics you do collect over time. Azure has lots of options that you can do from Azure resources. There are platform level metrics that every minute that it's being sent to the metrics. For web apps or any kind of function apps, you have the application insights as an extension you can implement. For the Windows, there are Windows extensions, and Linux has the Telegraph agent or the custom metrics if you don't have any. Logs, on the other hand, are kind of happens on event-based systems when something happens, rather than being every minute. So they are quite irregular. They can be stored X amount of time. It's longer than the metrics. Normally metrics have a shorter time, but they can be converted as logs. So you can kind of make the metrics to be extendable, retentionable. Why is it important? Because if you are compliant, you need to be aware of how many days, weeks, years you need to store that data, or kind of dismiss it, that you shouldn't be actually retaining that data. And in terms of the types, there are control plane, data plane, and process events. The control management plane is Azure platform, kind of whatever it is doing on the basic, whereas the data plane is your applications that you're responsible with. And the process event is on top of that, kind of gives you the process, if there's an alert or an action happened, what happened on top of it. So it's kind of a third layer of the events. So this is everything that Azure you can get from Azure. It's quite intense, and I'll try to cover it as much as I can. From the Azure tenant, the basic one, it used to be Azure Active Directory logs. They call it audit logs. Kind of, in a sense, you don't understand what your user logins are, in a sense, what activities are happening, who is logging in, who is doing what. And now they are transitioning to make it activity logs with the service configuration and service health, that you can aggregate them or look them as activity logs. Still you need to enable, still you need to link them to log analytics workspace or something, which I'll show you, but as the basic, you have all the visibility if you enable, is the point. If you go one level up to the Azure resources part, there are metrics, diagnostic logs, and monitoring solutions. If you go one level up, you have the guest operating system. It's all agent-based, but you have literally 3 types of things. It's 2 of them are agents. The most basic one is the diagnostic extension. The second one, the diagnostic extension, is metrics and performance counters and all the basics that data you need to extend. Log analytics agents and the dependency agent is a bit more kind of more data when you need it. Dependency agent, for example, is when you want to do the service map. So if you want to see what's network flow between 2 VMs, so this VM is connecting to another one. So it's kind of getting the other data, and also the application inside is for any application and custom API. So if you look at the bottom one, the audit logs, which is quite interesting to check with. Azure AD comes with 4 editions: basic, free, premium, P1, and premium to P2. Who are premium P2? Like, it is literally give the most power with this kind of budget, apparently correlation. But it does kind of, Microsoft is trying to invest much of their functionality to the P2 customers. The others are a bit basic when you compare. And because my subscription, the demo I'm doing is was on P2, I'm not going to be able to show some part of it, but it's kind of good enough for you get the understanding of what the Azure platform does. It does the audit logs, and it does have the sign-in logs for the PP2 with the premium edition. It can, if you integrate with the identity protection, it can flag what users are at risk, or the risk is sign-ins. And it has retention policies, kind of depending on your edition. So everything we have is a bit kind of, I know, details and boring. I'll get to the slide, the demo part soon. This is the last part. Azure platform has the service health and service configuration, which I mentioned from the activity log. It can send it to Azure Monitor or Event Hub for the streaming. So you can actually 100 other options that you can integrate with other APIs or tools. Azure Services is the performance operations or the insights, which I mentioned as the most metrics for the diagnostic logs or the management solutions that can be sent to a stored account or logs. Virtual machines and applications, most of the time that we are dealing with. So this is a kind of diagnostic extension, log analytics, and dependency agents I was talking about. I see people, some of my ex-clients as well, that want to install third-party tools, name it, New Relic, Dynamics, DynaTrace. It's like £700 per VM machine that you have to pay, whereas Azure does it like free little bit cost, because for the data ingestion to the log analytics platform, you have to pay how much data you put in, but that's it, kind of, it's like 0.005 per gig, or compared to nothing. But sometimes I lose that argument. I don't know why, but they want to buy it. They have money. But in a sense, if you want to trace kind of performance metrics or any kind of data, Azure platform should be good enough, is my understanding, my experience. And for the applications,
Do the hosts that you're monitoring, do they all have to be on Azure, or could they be
no,
on-prem?
that's a good question. No, it can be external as well. It can be on-prem. And for the applications, actually, I had one client 2 years back that we had the on-prem IaaS web server that we couldn't get at Dynamics. It was an evaluation process, kind of, we were trialing, but we had a live kind of issue as well. We had to trace. And I was in the middle of nowhere. Then I had to install the application insights to an on-prem, like within 15 minutes. I had the metrics, kind of, I had the data, the dashboard and everything was on Azure, but I have the full visibility on kind of what is. It's just, it needs connectivity and you don't need any requirements. And it works perfectly fine.
Will that work on Azure Stack? Okay, the clients who are interested in the secure environment of the Azure Stack, will that, what you're saying now, will it work visibly?
That's a good question. I haven't worked with Azure Stack. I worked with on-prem and cloud, but that's...
My understanding is that 90% of what's in Azure is in Stack. So what isn't available with Azure native isn't available in Stack.
Should be, but I haven't kind of... Yeah, any on-prem, any cloud provider, yeah. I try to cover that here, non-Azure, as in everything, kind of the whole part for the guest OS, application and custom API, their all red part is available for any environment. Actually, it's Azure and non-Azure. It's kind of tricky to put that on Azure. It's wrong, definitely wrong. But any environment that you can reach, you can have connectivity, an IP kind of.
So this is just one last question. This is a plugin agent that's directly from Azure, as long as you have the subscription details and the tenant details, and that part of the configuration parameters.
Yeah.
And then, okay.
For the diagnostic extension and the application app insights, they are like extensions you can enable from, if we are talking about Azure VM, you can just enable from the portal. It's kind of, for the web app, it needs a restart of the web app, kind of, that's the deal. But it's available instantly. For the log analytics agent and dependency agent, it's an agent like MSI installer, you need to install and configure it. But it's really straightforward and really kind of quick solution, a good solution as well. So log analytics, so we have data, right? We have lots of sources that now we gathered. It's IoT implementation, it's whatever on-prem, Azure, AWS solution we had. So we gathered the data, we had aggregate lots of insight. How do we query them and how do we analyze this? Have you heard of Custo or Data Explorer? Data Analytics? Cool, yeah. It's kind of the brand new Graph API that you want to play with. Possibly it will be the thing because Azure is investing lots of documentation and money in it. It does kind of, in terms of the pipelining, the idea is you gather all the data and you pipeline like a filter, and you create a graph at the end of it, a table or a chart available. Log analytics, those are the kind of basic examples I found, but they're not basic all the time. Because log analytics also means that it should have a workspace, which is quite tricky some of the time. I worked with my ex-clients as well, that creating a workspace is like luxury or extra thing, but no, it's the basic thing, the most basic thing you should do. You should create a workspace, and workspace has lots of additions. It's like marketplace that you can kind of integrate into your workspace solution so that you can write the queries like update. The first one, for example, does query the security ones, the logon activity where a computer had more than 10 logons. The second one is checking if any computer is missing an update. If you go and enable the workspace for the update assessment, this is it on there, then you can enable and see those ones. I will show in a, and these are the kind of marketplace options which are Azure Security Center, Insights, or update management that I was referring to. Enough talking, let me show you what we have. Incognito as well. If you play too much, literally the cache and everything makes it a horrible experience. Yeah, this is the work analytics workspace, and this is the demo. We won't be able to see too many kind of things here, unfortunately. Sure. This is the logs we are after. Okay. So this is kind of Studio. It's there's a standalone version as well if you want to play with more Graph API, kind of the custom language query. There's an online course at Pluralsight, kind of it's hours long, that you will know everything about it. You can be a master of it. So these are the parts, in a sense, that they are enabled when I installed and kind of enabled. So if I want to, for example, write that, so I should be able to. Yeah, I'll type. This is the update. So I want to say from the update, how many kind of where computer is. So update state is needed. Okay, let's run. It does give kind of noise. Table, which you can turn into a chart. My UI doesn't help. All the details, kind of, these are the metrics kind of from my AKS agent, kind of the cluster being collected. And you can export it. The nice thing is it has a query explorer, so you can share with your team. There are built-in solution queries already. The example we had, for example, was updates. And the computers with automatic updates disabled, for example, that you can just query and run. There will be no results because of my environment, or this is the missing updates for computers. It's really kind of powerful when you enabled it. It's computer controls on, which I don't have one.
But we make a query like just to see the find out systems that is not compliant with the PCI. Let's say that PCI states are requiring to harden or tweak some registries or files, whatever. So I just want to, can I do a query like, okay, show me the non-PCI compliant and which matter bulletin that I'm not compliant with. Can we do something like that?
Part of this talk is about that. Can people get that to the end? But I think my last slide possibly is about that. So if you can hold on that, but yeah, definitely that. Log analytics, in terms of the API, this would be just a powerful query language. You have to write the query. It doesn't give you that much support in terms of the.
Well, that's on an application level.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we have a client at the moment with my AKS system. Okay. We have to put Prometheus. Okay. Capture more metrics.
Yeah.
At big data level.
Yeah.
Okay. For PCS, for compliance. What feature does this, what you're saying now, how integrated will it be in future? Not just for the application, but at the monitoring network levels as well. Sniffing traffic.
Do you want to, the question is where you want to locate it?
Not just at the application level, but at the networking level. Sniffing traffic.
Yep.
Yes.
So the question is, if we want to integrate more levels, like the network level or the application level, where do we integrate all those questions? This query is, in terms of that, it gives you all the tables. You can do unions. It's proper languages, kind of. It's what kind of data you want to have.
Like the equivalent of a SNOT kind of thing to warn us about illegal traffic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can help you with it. So in log analytics, there are different solutions that you can implement for containers or for networking. Just implementing the solution itself, it by default will apply the metrics to monitor, and it will apply in a log analytics, and applying this query, you can separate what exactly the outcome you want. Another place to look in it is Azure Security Center. You have to be on a standard plan, but just a few weeks ago, we implemented the compliance metrics on Azure Security Center that you can meet what those different compliance or not. As well, it gives the interactive, the networking map, which will show each item, how it interacts with each other in a VNet, in a different subnets. And let's say if you did allow or you didn't allow the traffic inbound or outbound through the network security groups, it will show as interactive map, and you can follow the Azure resources communicating with each other.
So this is kind of a bit inside to the question. For example, the anti-malware, update system I showed you, the var data, for example, the communication between VMs. And this is the one not showing, but possibly the spoofing and kind of the network level metrics you want to get is from the service map. It doesn't show me because I don't have any data.
Layer 7.
Sorry?
It shouldn't, how can it go to layer 7? Like it's going to create terabytes of data. So you need to have something like deep DPI engine to handle that kind of traffic.
The problem with the cloud has always been this is I'm a very old-fashioned fellow. Okay, the problem with the cloud is that you don't own the infrastructure. Okay? You don't know what's going on, who's smelling it. Okay, or you share data. They should be able to provide us with metrics on
Data. With the Ignite, they announced something, any chip set for the, starts with con, I can't remember. Sorry? No, confidential computer? Or something, kind of, that's one of the offerings they do support, kind of, the between, because the idea is when the data from the CPU to the RAM kind of is sent, any spoofing, kind of anyone getting the data in between transacts can extract it, but not in terms of this level, does show that visibility. So this is kind of what the log analytics workspace look like, and how many data you can collect, integrate, in a sense. You can have your own solutions and the dashboards. Cool. Yeah, you will have all the queries and the favorite queries that you can share with. And one part, the last part possibly that I want to show. So what we said, okay, you have data sources, you have lots of extensions, agents you can install. Then you have aggregates, the logs. Log workspace is awesome that you can integrate with lots of data sources. And now we want to get something out of it. The most common way is to create an alert. It could be a dashboard or something, but I want to show the actionable kind of output of that metric kind of be collected, or the event. The alerts are kind of, because of the metrics collected with minimum 1 minute interval, you do collect them, and you have the control over what you want to do. Whatever I have shown on the log analytics query, that you can query that and action on that specific query. So it's a modular notification system. A kind of tip, do not multiply your alerts. I've been to the places, we had Datadog, we had Grafana, you have so many dashboarding, and most of the dashboarding solutions does provide alerting systems. And then you come up with kind of 5 alerts in your phone, 10 emails, and they're all not connected as well. I had to chase for 2 days Datadog. Why Microsoft alerts, kind of from the Azure portal alerts, are not consistent with the Datadog alerts, because we did get kind of different timing. We had 500 server error alerts that we have configured. It turned out to be the sampling size in Datadog was minimum 5 minutes by default. So I had to kind of change my configuration, alerts, thresholds, and everything. So if we had just one environment, that is the minimum, this is your central place, this is your alerting system. Whatever you choose, I'm not saying choose Azure portal or something, but to choose something unified. So if I want to have monitor, I'll go alert. If I want to create a new alert, I just want to choose, for example, source type. Web services. Condition that I can define whatever the standard. They are very industry standard. Server errors over the last 6 hours, so it does give you kind of display what it looks like, a feeling what should your threshold be. If you have multiple instances, if you have ASC by mistake or kind of by chance, you are using ASC. Anyone using ASC as your service environment? That you may want to have all the instances kind of available on that environment. Greater than threshold, let's say 10 of them. And you can say over the last 5 minutes, within 1 minute is my threshold. I set the condition, by the way, sorry, is anything you can write. So these are the standard ones. For the action group, if I want to create a new action group, this will be my email group, ITSM, support, dev team, dev app 1. Thinking that all the development teams are taking their own support codes, right? That is the... So, email 1. You can define what the resource group is going to be. And it will create that action group on that resource group. The nice thing is, for each action, you have the option to send an email, SMS, push, or voicemail. If you do voicemail, is kind of someone from California with a weird voice, send a voicemail. In the middle of the night, you don't want to hear. You can integrate with Azure Functions, Logic Apps, Webhook, ITSM is the ServiceNow option, or automation runbook that you want to have a workbook to act upon it, if your system is smart enough. I'll just finish, and you just tell the details and the severity level that you want to define and integrate. That was it. So this is alerts. So what we did is kind of to see the metrics or the logs, the query, and the alerts for the demo. To understand why we need compliance or what's the secure means for us. Has anyone seen this? Yeah. They're kind of in the middle of the night, literally sneaked into the data center. Apparently they were moving, but kind of all the cables and everything is everywhere. But they found a way. So what does security means in terms of data protection, identity access management, network security, and threat protection? These are kind of the CIS benchmarks. So when you want to say something compliant or secure, these are the basic top things that you want to think about. I'm not going to go into detail. I want to hands-on more show. These are kind of how Azure can help you with each one. Confidential computing, this is the one I was talking about at the Ignite, that they introduced new chipset. And anything you can think of that you want to kind of be on top of it. Azure does provide lots of solutions. So the most important part, and I want to focus, is Azure Security Center. Azure Security Center is cloud workflow protection platform. And Gartner kind of has this recommendation. They don't have the quadrant yet, but they do provide kind of level of to the container level. What does mean a workload protection platform means what you should be doing, like that an environment shouldn't be sending emails, there shouldn't be any clients, there should be admin. You should take care of the admin privilege management. You should have a proper change management in place and log management. Azure Security Center does cover all of it, and it is one of the kind of recommended platforms to use as a compliance center. I just checked the Gartner peer reviews. I don't know if anyone relies on it, looks at it, reads it, writes reviews. It's Microsoft is here somewhere, kind of on top of other providers. So with the 4.5 to people, one of them is from Gartner. Actually, has done proper review. That's why I put it. Otherwise, yes, someone told it. No, it doesn't mean anything. but I think it is catching up. So this is a compliance dashboard. This is what everyone was after, right? This is the basic, most relevant thing that we want to see. So just the basics, it has a secure score. It does give the least compliant regulatory standards. This is the question that I think you were asking. How can I make that, okay, it's PCI compliant? How do I make sure that this is HPI compliant? The other one is coverage for the subscriptions. How many subscriptions you want, you can filter, you can focus on, or you can have the kind of top level, root level across your all subscriptions. The second part is about the hygiene, kind of how many recommendations are there, how healthy your monitoring system is. And the last part is about threat protection, which my subscription didn't have. The P2 premium AD does give you that inside, which I don't have, unfortunately. But if I want to show you, I'll be here. This is the one. So it is quite a dashboard, kind of. You can think of anything, all the details for each compliance, it is tidy up. So if I want to say what my environment is compliant with, how much, it does give you the dashboard with how many rules have been passed. And you can see which ones are kind of the ones SQL and logging apparently is not applied because possibly I don't have resources. But anything underneath is kind of does show you if the secure transfer required is enabled or not, or the secure storage service encryption is enabled. You can, this is Azure CIS compliance regulations and PCI DSS, ISO, SOC, and you can see all of them in one screen. You want to take care of them. If we go to the recommendations, they're quite helpful. The top one, and you need to enable MFA for all the accounts. It does give you all the details. It does have a recommendation score. That's where you can see all the details. This is, it does provide with the security policy. So by default, how it filters is the policies. So if you go to security, you can see for my subscription, what are kind of policies are enabled for compute apps, network, data, identity. They're all kind of enabled and it does watch them. If you want new ones, you can enable, you can integrate into. So with the Security Center, it has actually one, the data collection, threat detection, email notification. You have to turn it on, so it doesn't come up with default. You have to enable. You have, this is a bit you need to remember. But also they introduce the security configuration, which means that it's a JSON file. You can download all the operating system's configuration. And if you want to keep it under source control, kind of version it, upload it. If you want to comply with other kind of policies, it's kind of configurable. This is the first step from Azure actually to make it a bit automation or part of the CI/CD pipeline. Yeah, I have shown actually the security dashboard with issues and the recommendations. The next part is governance. So okay, I have Azure resources. How can I make my environment on top of it? Management groups. How many people have used management groups? So it is, I will go into detail each one, but it's kind of grouping of your subscriptions. Resource graph is the API that you can use the Custo query language and query your resources across multiple subscriptions. The problem right now with PowerShell and Azure CLI is you can write queries within the subscription. So you want to get the VM numbers or the details about them. It's literally, you need to provide subscription ID. But if you want to go one level up, say that across whole subscriptions I have, how many VMs, how many operating systems I have, and which ones are up to date. Those kind of queries go into the resource API. And also the policies and the blueprints will enable. This is the kind of idea. A management group can have up to 1,000 management groups. So whichever you like, you apply a policy to the root and everything is inherited. So it's easy way to kind of point to a direction, say that my IT is going to apply those kind of policies as well as our RBAC rules. So if you want to apply kind of groups, permissions within that level, management group is one-to-one, almost one-to-one match for the OU groups in AD if you are using. Kind of that's the idea where they want to integrate and simulate that idea of management. Second one is the resource graph API. This is kind of one level deep to the graph API, but Kusta language that you can write. The first one is the one I showed. Also, you can use the Azure CLI and the Azure, the PowerShell to integrate with. Yeah, there are so many policies. How many of them can we integrate? Like, do I need to take care of security, network, threat detection? There are so many. And what I'm going to do, what kind of action I'm going to take, deny, audit, deploy, or append. All of them are available, part of the policy sets that you can define. And the last part is the blueprint. It is really cool. Anyone using blueprints? That is the thing. And I was talking in the break, actually. I think this will be the thing every company, every enterprise company will be implementing within the next few years. Because it's, the first time I saw it, hey, this is the ARM template that I saw it like 4 years ago, 6 years ago. It is the same design of level. It may suffer the same problems as ARM, like nested graphs, JSONs. But as it stands, it does give you the whole subscription design. So when I want to have, for example, I want to create a brand new subscription, right? What this subscription is going to have, it's going to have a global admin. And I can assign either a role assignment, a policy assignment, a resource group, or resource manager. And I can publish it, share with the development teams, and then they can edit it if I allow to the level of detail, or they can put their parameters in when they want to create a new environment. So this is head start, making sure that you have a blank page with all the scaffolding in place and they can implement it. I want to show it quickly because it's really cool.
So is that a blueprint for your subscription?
Yeah, I created one and I'll show you now. So you can literally say, create new subscription with everything as a parameter to be filled in. Some of them, yeah, some of them are kind of mandatory. There are parameters. Some of them you make mandatory. Some of them you make optional. But all of them will be implemented.
So let's say, is it possible to, let's say that I have an Azure infrastructure, didn't do anything before for the security side. So if I, for example, I apply some policies here, can I also roll them back in, just some features, because in my production environment.
Enable, disable, you mean?
No. Let's say that I have never used some security policies in my environment.
Okay.
That I want to apply some policies.
Yep.
But I had some problems. Can I roll it back to the? Sorry. So my question was that.
Roll back what?
Roll back of the, let's say, okay, there are some standard requirements, policies. Is there a way to apply them? Like, okay, let's say disable that thing on the operating systems to be compliant with the whatever security standard it is. So is it working? Okay, third time. So my question was that, is there a way to roll back the policies that you have applied to the, let's say, the network level, to the operating system level, or whatever, with this security center that you have applied? So because let's say that there had been some issues. On recommendation.
So when you're implementing Azure policies, there are like different ways to implement. So the first one is like audit, right? So it's not doing anything. It's just checking if the criteria that you described, is it met or not met, right? So it leaves the way that you have to apply the changes if you wish or not, or let's say what Azure resources are being compliant. And another type of Azure policies that you can implement. So for example, Azure Monitor extension, you can say that if there are VMs in my Azure subscription that doesn't have a monitoring extension, deploy the extension or deploy the agent or deploy something, right? But there is no way to roll back, yeah, because you decide, what you want in your Azure subscriptions on management groups. Correct.
On and off. Yeah, you do disable or enable, you remove it, you put on. It's a gateway. Say that all resources are going to have UK South, kind of, because of the data protection, only provisioning places an environment. That's a policy, you put it, and when you take it off, anyone can create an environment or a resource within another location. So it's the gateway you open and off.
Yeah, so in this case, I think that probably would be the option to get different management groups created. Management groups gives you to assign the different subscriptions that you want to apply. For example, you have 5 subscriptions for the management group production and let's say a few subscriptions for the development or test. So you can apply some policies on a management group which is test and to see how it is working, and to have a separate for the same case for the production, just to audit, right? And you can see what the result is after implementing that changes.
Okay, this is the example that I want to go through it a bit basically. This is the subscription I created. I said if I do edit mode, you will have more idea. Inheritance is enforced, so everything underneath is implemented. So at the subscription level, I'm on the group admin, which is the role assignment. So everyone in the subscription is going to be, by default, there will be a group, owner of the global group admin, which I created. The trouble is you have to define here at the artifact creation state. So it's not parametric in a sense. If I want to say add artifact, role assignment, I can standard RBAC policies or your custom ones possibly. As the owner, I have to either kind of say that this value should be assigned during the creation assignment process, so it will pop up with fields, lots of fields that you need to fill in. And by the way, this is PowerShellable in a sense. There's an API. It's a JSON file. You do kind of call the PowerShell, and then you can create this with code as well. But just to give you the idea, I'm showing the UI, and you do type whatever if you want to enforce, so that the endpoint is not going to be implemented. If I say global, it will pop up. The UI is not working perfect. Well, if you type in, it does pop up other users or the groups, whatever you want to assign it. So you can add an artifact as a role assignment, so that when you create a subscription, you know who is the owner of it, who is the budget kind of owner. You can assign policy assignments saying this is the whole subscription, and there are 148. They are adding, by the way, every week. They started like 100 the first time I saw it. Every week they introduce new policy sets. You can have your own policy definitions. It's quite customizable. It has a nice language. The bottom line, the previous slide I showed you, approve, deny, audit, and deploy are the 4 options. You can take action upon it. So everything here you see, you either audit, deploy, append, or action. You can take whichever. For example, audit VMs, what not to use managed disk. But thinking that this is subscription level, I don't want to go level of detail. I just want to check the subscription level details. So these are the 10 subscription levels. It does give you kind of insight as well what a subscription should look like. So I know that as part of the policy statement, there should be a minimum owner for the subscription and maximum owner for the subscription. External accounts or with the permission of subscription should be audited, and MFA should be enabled. They're all from the subscription level details, policies you want to apply. There can be a resource group. So this is the kind of resource groups I created. For example, I said there will be a management group responsible for the OMS or the logging. There will be a network resource group responsible for creating the VNet and applying all the subnets and security rules. There will be a security resource group as well to applying policies, and app dev teams, kind of multiple application teams who are going to have their own resources. The idea is so that I know from my kind of high level design with segregation of duties, I'm the designer and I apply this kind of implementation to the application team saying, you are allowed to use those of resources. Off you go. I take my hands off. I'm the system admin. I'm the kind of the infrastructure, the whole design of Azure Cloud admin that I don't have to think about. I don't have to give them how to create a VM, how to create a SQL server, or any level of detail. But I'm forcing you at the start saying that, hey, this is the rules you can't do or you are allowed to do, and the implementation is up to you. So this is why I see very powerful and very applicable in any company I've been. Give you the default template. And if I want to assign, just to give, I think you got the idea. The last one I didn't show, which is quite powerful as well. The OMS example I have done here is you literally pass the template, ARM JSON template. So you say that this is how you are going to create it. It could be an alert, it could be monitoring whatever I told before, whatever you can deploy to Azure with ARM template, you can create it here. This is your implementation detail with ARM. So if they want to have kind of specific implementation details you take care of that, or you are concerned with, you can just implement it here, and all the kind of assignment will create those resources with the parameters defined on your ARM. So this is it does look the OMS gateway kind of requirement for the CQ capacity. And you can define it's mandatory or not to be during the assignment type. And you can see here, for example, 8 out of 10 parameters are populated. So the end user, when you assign this to a group of team, they just need to populate 2 parameters. To show, I say discard. I want to assign this blueprint to a team, someone, subscription, ideally. So this is another subscription I have, 01. I'll pick the pre-populated. These are the kind of variables I left unpopulated. You have the option to lock it, read only, or do not delete. So if you don't want to lock it, it means that the assigned group can edit it. Read only, kind of just read, and do not delete. They can write it, but they are not allowed to read it. It does provide manage identities. This is the whole details that you've seen. It literally goes through all the parameter set. We have created resources, resource groups, whatever you can think of. As I said, this is an API. It's kind of the JSON template you can fill in, and programmatically you can do it rather than filling the UI, which is not ideal. Everyone is happy? Can you see the feature? Yep.
Often you permission off on Azure AD groups. Will this also create those Azure AD groups that you're going to use for?
AD has PowerShell, so you can create your AD, whatever the environment you have. There is no one-to-one integration. You have to do it in advance. Yeah. So you do provide as input, but
okay.
Power is in your hands.
Question, can I also create the resource?
I did. The OMS is a resource. It's anything. It was the ARM JSON template I showed. Everything. You literally define it here. any artifact, any kind of ARM template that you can think of. This could be an alert, this could be kind of monitoring solution, whatever it's kind of doable. I loved it kind of, and I saw it as has a big benefit for lots of companies that struggle with creation of subscriptions. I don't know how long, how many days, weeks, months it has taken to create a subscription. This can take just a day to define. It's because the visual admin work is being done by the person who doesn't have to go to the technical details and who doesn't have to own it.
Can you create resource groups and types? Can you create resource groups and types in the main tenant in a master subscription and then reference those in any child subscription?
That's nested ones is not there yet. So there is a blueprint, can't have a blueprint, and it's still trickier to reference the parents' items.
Is that possible with policies maybe? Or nothing at all presently?
Presently nothing. But I think it will evolve, kind of. It will have more features.
Can I trigger this blueprint from a CI pipeline?
Yes.
No, that's take it.
It's a big JSON, as you can think of, but it's kind of, when you say deploy, it will deploy the whole set of the blueprint into whatever your subscription, as long as you can call PowerShell or an API endpoint. I can't remember, but it should be new blueprint or something. Assign blueprint to a subscription. It's just 2 lines of PowerShell. As long as you are happy to write the JSON file. It's the tricky part.
I can export it. Can I export this blueprint as a JSON file?
That's a good question. I
Or-
haven't checked that. Oh, that's
Or do I need to write a whole JSON file?
Because it's in a preview, but it should be available in ARM template.
ARM is the JSON. Yeah, there should be an API kind of version of it. How to? But good question. Cool. So the next question. So we have seen there are things like security, there are policies, but how do we pipeline them? How to make the secure pipeline? The general kind of standard pipeline is as follows. You have the local PR, why the static code analysis, code review, or the work item linking, which is critical, so that you know which feature has gone live, right? When someone does the release, you want to know which business requirement was kind of implemented, so that you have the full traceability, observability across your systems. And the CI can take the static code analysis, OSS vulnerability, unit tests, and metrics. And happily, Dev does the passive pen testing. Any devs doing it? I haven't done it, but it's quite daunting task. SSL scanner infrastructure. As long as it's part of the pipeline, it's quite easy to implement. But with the policies, we don't have a place to kind of implement or inject. This is where I'm going to show we can, with the DevOps kit that Microsoft announced, we can have the local PR, the CI build, and the dev pipeline, all part of the shifting left process of rather than the operate and the deploy happening at the end. We can do one step back during the build and the tests, but before the deployment, we can implement it. This is the AZA SK. It's a PowerShell module. That's why it starts with AZA. Has anyone seen it? It's kind of covers everything that you can think of policies. It does allow you to implement the subscription security intelligence, the security verification test, part of the build release pipeline, whatever we have talked about, the policies and all JSON files. Now, we have the power with the continuous assurance runbooks. It's proper Azure Automation runbook, and OMS solution for alerting and monitoring that we can display as dashboards. because everything you see on the Azure dashboard is JSON. We know that, right? Whatever you see on the Azure dashboard is literally customizable, that you have the full power of what to design to put in where. So let's check what the Azure SK does. It does require one SPN, one OMS, kind of very basic things. It does have a baseline policies, which you can customize. You can add as many as you want. That's the power of it, and create the reports, either for manual or automation fix. So let's see it in action. I have run it before, so it's kind of, I will go through the cool. It's basic PowerShell scripts, really. Okay. The first one is to get Azure subscription. So can I will use PowerShell ISC. I don't know. I haven't done the transition to Visual Studio Code yet, partly because everything doesn't work, and during the demo, it's the last thing you want to do. So if I want to do is, this is set AZ security is the first thing that I have a kind of subscription. I want to first set up who is going to be responsible. All the alerts and the kind of emails communication will be done through. I lost it now. Let's see how I'll go back. Sorry, this is the one. So it's just PowerShell set is it security. And if you provide the subscription ID with the details, it does provide and send it. If I shouldn't have put my phone number there. So this is kind of the details it does provide and configure the alerts. This is less exciting than the next one. So the second one is I want to get the security status. What it does, it goes and compares with baseline and show you what my state of it. By the way, this is how you remember the Azure security dashboard that implemented all the monitors and dashboard. Everything is written by this source code, apparently shared by Microsoft. They were not quite sure at release or not, but it's kind of a bit gossip, I heard. But now we have. Why it's running? Okay, I can't remember clicking, but apparently I did. So after it does run, it does give the output. What's nice is everything run, whatever I have here. It detects the settings and output here for each subscription. No, it didn't run actually. It's just slow. Sorry, maybe it's my tethering. Everything under my app data, it does create an output of which scripts I have run. And per each subscription, it does create another folder. This is my demo subscription. And these are the commands that I have run before. Each extension has the name of the command. So I did run get is that security subscription. No, the first one is SSS, set security subscription. So the last one it did run was SSS, and this is the PowerShell output for that subscription. If I want to run the get status one, this is the exciting part. I said get filter by the auth set. I could say PCI DSS and whatever the compliance regulatory on the Azure security dashboard that you have seen. It'll have all the filter tags applied to it. And it does give me the whole Azure subscription status. So minimize the number of admins. Everything I showed you before was literally for this moment that I was waiting for. Everything we have talked about is, most of it, baselined as here. And it does show me the whole output as an Excel sheet. So I can integrate this, whatever third-party tool, Power BI, the endpoint, that I want to display. But most of it, I want to see it, right? I want to Herbal, CSV. Get security status. Yeah, I have filtered kind of a bit. This is the previous one, but literally every time it does give the same output. It doesn't give formatted, so do not be disappointed. It kind of, this is my filter. If I remove my filter, like so. The important part is not how many of it produce. The power is how many policies you can put in, because it literally reads a local folder and reads all the JSON files, the policy JSON files, and it gives the output. That's the power of it, kind of. But to think about, this is my first subscription. I'm a brand new kind of Azure admin. I have no idea what's going on. And what I should do is a nice kind of guide. I want to learn about the failed ones, menus. I don't care about the past ones. And I only care about the severity high ones. There are 4 of them. Basic. Some of them I have no solution for it actually, but I just want to go through basic. Use of management certificates is not permitted. It has a nice kind of description, and also it does give you what it means. It says management certificates are not required. Log on and navigate, go to settings, management certificates, and delete the unwanted management certificates if you have too many, kind of you want to be aware of it. The second one is alerts must be configured for critical actions. So maybe this is a brand new subscription, I don't have any alerts. It does provide a command, which means if support autofix says yes, it does create a PowerShell script for you as well. So you know what to do and you can apply it. And yes, there's an option to say auto apply. And when you apply next time, it does auto apply those fixes for you. So it does kind of continuously assure your environment is in action. Verify list of public IP addresses on your subscription. This is not something automatable, but it kind of you have to do. But it's literally, it does give you the PowerShell script. Very helpful. The name of the public IP addresses for this resource group to delete the run. Remove RM public IP addresses. So each one is kind of quite helpful. The last one is permanent access shouldn't be granted for privileges. So at subscription level, this is, I feel tricky because to run this, I need an SPN, and it does tell me that SPN is not allowed. So it's a bit chicken and egg situation that if I didn't have the service principal, the service account to execute this one, then how I'm going to do it? There are other options like conditional access or other kind of part of the things, but I think permanent access all the time and service principal having across the whole subscription is quite risky. It's trying to point out. So this is cool, I think, yeah. And finally, I got my subscription, I got my security status, and I have all the filter tags. So it could be authorization or any other less. Okay, so I'm a developer and I love coding. This is my brand new application that I have done. Just display some pictures, maybe, that on my free time or as part of work I'm doing. Anyone may notice that anyone kind of has the security hat on it. When I see this, I go crazy. Like, what you have done? Your configuration file has the access key of the storage account hard-coded. I mean, there are multiple things wrong, right? You have the storage account key, you haven't created the SAS token, you haven't put this as a parameter, but it's hard-coded. There are so many things wrong with this code, I'm pretty sure, but it's a developer, he or she is working on her own, right? What harm can it be? And deploying to public cloud, I shouldn't maybe pay attention to it. Yeah, the developer is working on, and but that is not the best thing to do. I have run these applications like 10 plus times. None of them had never issued. It's like F5. Anyone see? Oh, I know. It's the view. I changed that. Yes, that's why. So just to give it a display, this is my local dev box, right? I have written something, and this is public cloud, and I published it. Anyone has any idea what this is doing? This application, if it doesn't have any public IP restrictions or anything, it's publicly giving the storage account key, the SAS token generated and put onto the UI. So anyone who is, and the Azure websites are public by default. If you don't give the IP restriction, anyone can kind of read this and get the data and just hack your storage account and whatever information, how valuable information you have, it may be. So what type of information it could be? This is the brand new kind of prototype that your research company is working on very secretly that you don't want to see. It's a farm car, by the way. I don't think how far it can go, but anything kind of what level of security you want to implement, it's your website, it's deployed. Who has access? Which security admin can detect me when I publish this? What kind of control can you put me to avoid on the gateway that my application is secure? Like, because everything I have told up till now was okay, kind of with the policies. You do restrict the logins, you do restrict the VMs, you restrict the locations, but this is something a bit further needs investigation. So this is part of the DevOps kit. It does give you, and I'm the developer, I want to put my code to development and production, of course. And this is a template. I've kind of created my JSON. It's a web app. It's very simple, I know to do it. So I created it, and this is my local dev box. Because Azure stack DevOps give me another commandlet, get ARM template security status. So this is where my template file is. It's just literally a path parameter. So awesome. This is part of my local sandbox, the part I showed. It's running, and it did display all the output. It did fail on a couple of issues as well, kind of. There is no client authentication used kind of within my application who there. There was no latest version used for the .NET framework. I'm using the old version of .NET framework. Logging and monitoring were not allowed. HTTP access, because I'm not using HTTPS, who cares? And use multiple instances for the availability. I don't care, kind of. It looks okay. Who's going to look at me? Kind of, I can skip this, right? And the nice part comes in when you do push the code. And where's my bookmark? This is where your cache is deleted, but you don't want it. So if I go to here, where I need to the I'm literally trying to access, but I can't. Yes. This is part of the pipeline, so I created my build, which just builds the web app, works perfectly fine. And this is the release pipeline that the first one should be 24. It did fail. It did fail because of whatever the build pipeline, kind of whoever created, does put that ARM template as the module, PowerShell module. It's part of my pipeline, and it does give confidence over the kind of security of my application. Sanity check, you can see, and it's not kind of ignorable easily. If we look at the pipeline, actually, this is part of the module, DevOps Kit module. There are two tasks that is part of integrated. The first one is the ARM template. You just literally drag and drop and provide the subscription ID, nothing else. So simple. And the other are the verification tests. These are quite customizable. The output you can put to OMS logging. You just tell this for this resource group, give me the verification test. Kind of, it's which parameter, which compliance, which kind of standard you want to live up to. They're all available and kind of usable.
So you can do OMS logging when the developer's about to do something stupid, and it'll send you a text before it's deployed it. There's cred scan in there as well.
Yeah, you can do.
Yeah.
This isn't.
To catch that where he's put a password in a connection straight up.
Yes. There's a proper git stack. There's a proper, it does create containers for each one and executes and check all the, it should be git stack.
Someone needs to ask a question. Please raise your hand so it gets made. So that it gets recorded, the question as well as the answer. Otherwise, we'll just hear the answer on the record.
So this is how plugins, Trufflehawk is the one I normally use for the password checker. But the GitLakes, GitSnacks, GitHound, and API, they have the plugins. It literally creates a container image, and it does execute the code there and checks if there's any kind of injections, kind of smoking code there. Cool. So this is kind of making sanity. Then I know that my environment, I know my process works nicely. My pipeline, CI/CD check. I have confidence over my environment. the kind of last part that I want to show. Unfortunately, it didn't work. I know it's. I couldn't get this working. I'll show you the screenshot and the kind of done example of it. Simply because, if anyone had this issue before, is the security, creating self-certificates. This is Windows 2012 R2 by mistake. And the module, DevOps Kit module, does have the new certificate creation process, which does use the Windows 2012 new PowerShell module, which is not compatible with the old one. I tried to play with it, but it does kind of work in a sense. It creates the compliance. I'll show them. It's going to be empty. Come on. This is because some stuff is maximized. So if I go to portal, what it did, if that contains call to continuous assurance, does actually does install a portal dashboard for my organization with my specific policies that you can customize and checks each time when it's implemented. So if I go to automation, automation account. Ideally, it continuous assurance, it does create a runbook, a scheduled to run every day or by default every day, but you can customize every hour. It does create a runbook with the jumps in it. This is fading simply because the reason I told you, the certificate is not created properly. And it does create on my dashboard a DevOps Kit monitoring dashboard. This is literally, you do nothing. It does by default creates everything. And each slot was supposed to be showing what's the status of my scans. So this is the last run book, the automation account, what it run, what's the drift of it. This is the positive drift controls, negative drift controls. But right now there is no scan that I can share. But the idea is you have all the other exceptions. Yeah, these are the PowerShell scripts, that parameter, that whatever I have been implementing. You can have the visibility by default on that environment. Back to the slides, last one. So yeah, if something was going wrong, these are the backups that what is being output by the scripts I have run, and the DevOps pipeline. That's it. Oh, it's here. This is the one I had, but ideally, kind of, you had the old statistics, and these are the organizational baseline policies implemented. If you want to implement more or kind of add, you will have more data and to see on your environment. Cool. Any questions? It is the product, literally, kind of Microsoft is trying to push and kind of promote it to be day-to-day. So you have the PowerShell scripts, you have the JSON files, off you go, kind of hands-on. It's on GitHub, it's available. For the references, there are 2 books that I used reference in this slides as well, the Pen Testing Azure Applications and the Azure Security Center. The Pen Test Azure Applications has 1 chapter for this DevOps Kit, But it does tell less than what I told you. It's kind of a reference point to check and see what's going on. But it doesn't tell what applications do require what type of pen testing. Ignite has so many kind of contents on it. If you have time, please do watch. They do tell for any feature I've shown you here, they have an hour of full presentation on what the offering is and what the details of the offering is. As a summary, what you need to get away from today: enable the security center, the first thing, if you are on cloud, is a must. Enable all the logs as much as you can afford it. It does cost money, but please do. Automate your policy. Think SK, it's open source, kind of needs a bit help. It is working by default, but as any open source project, it will help. It needs to grow. And after, you can give freedom as long as kind of you do ring fence and tell them what they are allowed to. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.